christiangeekcentral.com.
Well, my editing skills are crap, but can the same thing be said about 1989's Batman? Stick around and find out. I'm Peter Franson from christiangeekcentral.com and Spirit Blade Productions, and the theme song singer this time was my son, Asher. This is our uncut review of 1989's Batman. Now, this was the first PG-13 movie that I had ever watched. One of the first for Asher. He's watched a number of Marvel movies and a few other things, but he is the same age, 12 years old, that I was when my dad finally, after much begging, took me to see Batman in 1989, just before it left theaters. It was in the cheap theaters by the time that we got to it. So, very striking memory for me, and we just hadn't gotten around to it by now. It wasn't like on purpose that I waited till he was the same age as me, but it just happened to work out that way. And so I thought it would be interesting to watch it with him, which we did a few days ago, and then kind of get his reactions as, you know, a modern 12-year-old seeing this old Batman movie with dated effects and all that kind of stuff, and just kind of see what he thought of it. So before we go any further, what would you say are like your basic reactions to it? I mean, did you generally like this thing, or was
Again.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Which I wondered. I was like, is he going to be bored? Is he not going to find this interesting? So let's talk about the story. And you know, it's 1989's Batman. We are going to talk full-on spoilers here. So we're not going to hold anything back. We're going to say whatever we want about this movie. So
I mean, it came out a long time ago, so hopefully you all watched it.
Yeah, and it's a classic. You know, it's like next to Richard Donner's Superman in 1978, Batman is one of the most influential superhero movies because it took it seriously. It took it very seriously, especially compared to the Adam West Batman, which you've seen some clips of since watching the '89 movie. But
yeah.
Go ahead.
Didn't Adam West come? That was the 60s, wasn't it?
1960s Adam West's Batman TV series, yeah.
But enough about the series.
Yeah.
Talk about this movie here.
That's right. So, was the story interesting to you?
Yes, it was. Actually, it was very interesting.
Yeah?
And yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Were there any like boring parts? Like first, I want to hear like the most boring parts, and then maybe some of your favorite parts. So, were there any boring parts?
Sometimes it gets boring, but at these points, I mean, I know it's Batman, so I try to pay really close attention. So even when Bruce Wayne isn't Batman, it's still quite interesting.
Yeah, and the movie, I was noticing at the very beginning, there's lots of stuff going on with Gotham. You know, they're talking about this state of crime, and there's organized crime stuff. You know, because Jack Napier doesn't become the Joker until at least I want to say 20, maybe close to 30 minutes into the movie. I can't remember, but there's a while there where it's just kind of normal organized crime type stuff, and there's that opening scene with Batman. But after that, we kind of don't see him for maybe a little while, well, until the creation of the Joker, you know, at Axis Chemicals. So I was wondering if you were getting bored.
I always for some reason, you know how they say Axis Chemicals in that movie?
Yeah. Careful not to bump this.
I almost always hear it, from other places, Ace Chemicals.
Oh, yeah. They kind of changed the name of the chemical plant that Joker was kind of born at from movie to movie and comic to comic and stuff. So what were some of the coolest or the best parts that you thought?
The coolest or best parts? So I was shocked. That was one of the best. One of the best parts was when I
want to make sure this isn't getting in your face.
It was when I found out that Joker had actually killed Bruce Wayne's parents. But at the time, he was just a common criminal, like in the comics or whatever. It's always just a common criminal who kills his parents. And at the time, Jack was a common criminal, but not anymore. he's joking around now.
Yeah. That's a big change from the comics. In the comics, the man who killed Bruce Wayne's parents was named Joe Chill. And he was just kind of an average street thug. I think he was caught up, maybe involved in some mob stuff. But I mean, the whole point in the comics of it being just a normal killer, and then or a normal criminal, and then that criminal escaping Batman's justice. Like he was killed by somebody else before Bruce Wayne had a chance to get to him. Maybe even before Bruce Wayne became Batman, you know. But he wasn't able to kind of get the satisfaction, quote unquote, of revenge. And so that makes sense of Batman continuing and just going after criminals in general, because he never got the satisfaction of bringing his own parents' killer to justice or enacting vengeance on them or whatever. So there has been over the years a lot of dislike among fans that the Joker was made into the killer of Bruce Wayne's parents, because then you've got this movie where, okay, Joker dies at the end of this movie, Batman kind of kills him in a sense, and so there's that closure. You know, why would Batman continue? You know, they don't really establish why he would continue fighting crime as well. But I mean, I think it makes for a good one-shot movie. It just doesn't create a good platform for a franchise. Okay, so what did you think of the ending, of the fact that Joker died, of the final fight?
It was pretty intense.
Yeah?
Yeah, I'd just say it's pretty intense. And you know how there was, like, at the end when you just see Joker's body just, like, grinning or something,
yeah.
and he's on the ground, like, a little halfway pounded into the street.
Yeah.
And then you can just hear this repeated laughing over it. Yeah. Yeah. I have no... Wait, what was that? What do you...
It was a novelty item. It's like a little thing you would buy in a joke store or toy shop or gift shop called like a bag of laughs.
Okay.
So it was just a little toy that he had that was going off in his pocket.
Huh. So I feel like that has some sort of meaning or something.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what feeling we were meant to be left with, if we were meant to believe that, you know, in some way he was going to live on, or what, you know. So it was an interesting choice at the end there, but
I think I have a theory.
Oh, okay.
Batman is going to get arrested for some reason or something for killing the Joker, and maybe he set off the toy just before he died, to, like, mocking the Batman. Or something. Yeah,
that's interesting. It's funny that Batman is never really brought to justice for all the killing that he does in this movie. I was reminded, like, he sends the Batmobile in, and there's a bunch of thugs in Axis Chemicals when he blows it up. And we see the bombs drop out of the Batmobile, drop between their legs, and then boom, there's a huge explosion. Batman just killed a bunch of thugs. Now, you could argue maybe he didn't do that knowingly, but I think that they would say, the filmmakers would say, no, this Batman kills. He just doesn't care, you know. And I think he knocked the guy off of the bell tower, and he fell down and stuff like that. So there's Batman's killing all over the place in this movie, and he does some of it in Batman Returns as well. So that was interesting. He was scary, though. That's something that I noticed again in the first scene with the criminals on the rooftop. Remember when Batman first appears?
Yeah.
What did you think of that scene? Remember the criminals that had just stolen the wallet from the couple, and the criminals that had just at the beginning of the movie, they robbed that couple in the alley.
Yeah.
But they didn't kill them. They just robbed them.
Yeah.
And then they were divvying up. They were on the rooftop divvying up, looking through the wallet, and then Batman shows up.
Yep.
You remember that scene now?
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah, I mean, I looked over and I saw, like, a wide-eyed grin on Asher's face, and I think what I was really liking about it, and, you know, well, can you tell me what you liked about that scene?
It's just the point where a superhero appears. I'm just like, oh no, you guys are in trouble.
Yeah, and
because they're just street thugs.
Yeah.
They're nothing compared to Batman.
Yeah. And they were talking really tough. The one guy was like, Batman, whatever. And then by the end of that scene, he is totally freaking out. Like, what are you? You know? And
I'm Batman.
That's right. Iconic line. And what I noticed in this movie that it's such a shame was not carried over into the movies that followed is how people reacted to Batman, both criminals and non-criminals when they saw him. Criminals were, you know, in the opening scene at least, were terrified of him, thought he was not human, and he goes to all this trouble to create the impression that he is a supernatural being. You know, he's like, uses really thin cables so it almost looks like he's flying when he swoops around. He uses the smoke so that when he disappears, he kind of like, you know, moves through the smoke and creates trails of smoke behind him as he disappears somewhere up above. And he's there one minute, people turn around and he's gone the next. And so there's a lot of the kind of supernatural mystique that he's creating for himself in this movie that really was not carried over into Batman Returns and the other two Batman movies that followed in this particular Batman series. And I think that's to the detriment of the series big time. It's great when Batman is scary and when even non-criminals are like, whoa, what is this? What am I looking at here? You know, and so that was really great for me still in this movie. Let's see here. Oh yeah, what did you think of Vicky Vale as a character? Was she interesting to you? Was she... Vicky Vale? That's the love interest, the reporter, the photographer, I mean.
Yeah, I think she would... I think the story might have been pretty different if she was not in the movie. I think she plays a pretty big role.
For sure. Yeah, she kind of represents us. She's learning about Batman as we are learning about Batman through her at the same time. But I think other than that, she is not really an interesting character to me. I don't really understand why Bruce Wayne would uniquely connect with her in particular compared to, you know, any number of other women, you know. And so I feel like she really served a purpose in the story of this movie, but in terms of her relationship to Bruce Wayne, I don't think she really brought anything very unique that was worth exploring further in the future movie. So it makes sense to me why she was not in the second movie. I noticed the Bat gadgets in this movie. What did you think of the Bat gadgets?
Well...
like the various things that he used.
Well, there's definitely the Batarang.
Yes. You gotta have the Batarang.
Yeah. I mean, who is Batman without a Batarang? Yeah.
I noticed, like, some very convenient gadgets that... over the years, I've noticed a little bit more and more, but this time it really hit me hard. Like when he's racing through the city with the Batmobile and he needs to make a sharp turn, and he uses the grappling hook to grab onto like a lamppost, and that helps him navigate that really tight, fast turn, you know. And we just wouldn't see something like that today. I could see that, okay, maybe that would make sense that he would think ahead to have that in his vehicle so that he could make sharp turns. Okay, yeah, I can see that maybe. But then it gets a little bit weirder. He's got the Batwing, which conveniently has this little kind of clip, or this little claw that comes out to grab all the balloons, and then it clamps shut on them. And if you look at that second shot, they're all nicely divided up into little grooves for each cable. And then it pulls inward to cut all the cables off. And I'm just like, why in the world would he take all the time to have that built or to build himself into the Batwing, you know, for just this kind of circumstance? It just seems a little too convenient. It seems like a little bit of a carryover, actually, of the absurdly convenient gadgets that Batman had in the 60s series. And then finally, he had that one gadget that would, like, extend out of his palm to hit that guy in the crotch in the Belfry scene when he's doing all the flips and kicks, jumps in the air, and then two big spike things come out of his boots. And it's like, what's Batman going to do? Well, you know, today he would just dodge in a movie. But this time he just stayed in place. This extension thing came out that could reach past the claws to his crotch and stop him midair and make him fall down. And again, I'm like, why would he have that in particular built into his suit? So the gadgets seemed a little bit unrealistic and convenient for me, but still pretty cool. Still pretty cool.
Yeah, and then there's also you forgot about the Batmobile's like self-protecting thing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I have never seen that happen before.
Yeah, that was I remember that looking really cool. when I saw it in '89. It looks a bit stop motion now. For some reason, when I saw it in '89, it looks smoother. I think it was a smoother stop motion than we had typically seen before that, which is maybe what made it look more real to me in the late '80s. But now, I mean, it still has evidence of being basically a stop motion kind of effect rather than something digital. They would just do it digitally now. But anyway, yeah. But I can see him building shields, into his car. That has multiple applications. So let's talk about the cast a little bit and their performances. What did you think of Michael Keaton as Batman and as Bruce Wayne?
He was pretty good. I like him I think I enjoy him as an actor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As both Bruce Wayne and as Batman?
Yeah.
Yeah. I definitely like his Batman. In hindsight, coming back to it, he plays kind of a weird Bruce Wayne. Which, that makes sense to me with this being a Tim Burton film. He's going to look for every chance to have characters that are slightly darkly odd, and I think Bruce Wayne was certainly that. But from the comics, the Bruce Wayne persona is much more of a suave playboy, maybe sometimes a bit carefree and absent-minded, but this guy seemed almost a little kind of socially awkward, and maybe because they're playing up the fact that he's a bit of a recluse, and so this was a different take on Bruce Wayne than we've typically seen in animation and comics and in other movies. And I think Michael Keaton was a good fit for it, but it's not probably the Bruce Wayne interpretation that I would most be attracted to. What about Jack Nicholson as the Joker?
Oh, that, he makes the Joker kind of psycho.
Yeah. In what way do you mean psycho?
Well, he's crazy.
Yeah.
He uses a pen to kill somebody by stabbing him in the neck, and then he does it again with this burner on his hand. Yeah,
the joy buzzer is like an electrocutor thing.
Yeah, but that only electrocutes them I remember in some other things, there's always that thing involved.
Yes, he uses it in lots of other appearances of the Joker and stuff.
Yeah, but it only shocks someone and knocks them out or something.
Yeah, and
he literally killed someone.
Yeah, he hung on and just let him fry, ultimately. Because if you electrocute something long enough, it will start to burn, And so he just let him burn. I remember that was the darkest, most disturbing scene of the movie when I was a kid. I was like, oh my gosh, this is intense, It was a very striking first PG-13 experience for me. And, it doesn't look realistic now. It looks kind of, comic booky, as it were. But
yeah, it's just like a person glowing, and then you got a fake dummy.
Yes, then you put a dummy in there. Yeah, exactly. But he was dark. Like, the Joker's dangerous in this movie. He's a bit scary, even while he's funny.
I remember you telling me that in other, in comics, he was just like a joke around sort of person, but in that movie he actually proves that he is a super dangerous villain.
Yeah, before the 80s and before Frank Miller's The Dark Knight Returns, the Joker was...
There's no such thing as The Dark Knight Returns. Do you mean Batman Returns or The Dark Knight Rises?
This is a comic book I'm talking about.
Oh, The Dark Knight Returns.
Yeah,
oh,
and there actually is an animated movie of it, which you might totally like.
Okay.
But anyway, before that story was written, the Joker was largely a harmless character, and he really became, along with Batman, became very dangerous. And this movie was very inspired by The Dark Knight Returns. And so I like the Joker to be dangerous and darkly funny. I don't want him to be merely a harmless prankster. It's fine if he's that way sometimes, but I want him to unpredictably also become very scarily dangerous, and so I appreciated that. I felt like even though Nicholson was bombastic and stuff, I think there's something... I've grown to appreciate the idea of Joker being really skinny and just a little bit more nimble, and Jack Nicholson is just not as nimble and dexterous with his body. He's not as in control of his body,
there is this one thing I just wanted to add in. The Joker never always... In other comics, I don't... did the Joker really always have that stupid grin, just like...
it's not necessarily frozen on his face. That was kind of, I think, an invention of this movie, that like he got shot through the face so that they had to surgically pinch his cheeks, and that creates the grin. The surgery looks a little too neat and tidy. I think the way they approach it in The Dark Knight is a little bit more, realistic, even though they're kind of using a similar kind of a premise. But most of the time in the comics, he's insane. He's smiling because he's insane. And that's what I prefer. I prefer a Joker who is just almost always smiling because he's insane, rather than him being stuck with this grin, but not necessarily, crazy all the time or what. I don't know. It's a small aesthetic thing. But so yeah, the Joker is weird in this movie, and it's definitely a unique take on it. It's not my ultimate take. My ultimate take is probably going to be the Mark Hamill version of the Joker. I would love to see some kind of a live action version of that, not with Mark Hamill playing it, but like that kind of bonkers bombasticness, but also with the lethal nature, the dark, scary nature of the Nicholson and Heath Ledger versions of the Joker. Anyway, so let's see here. I think the Joker, as Nicholson played him, is kind of like best experienced up close because of Nicholson's style as an actor. What did you think of Michael Gough as Alfred? Any thoughts about him?
I like how he played him like a friendly guy.
Yeah, he was very warm, and you could believe that he was kind of Bruce Wayne's only family. And so I was just kind of charmed again by Michael Gough's Alfred. But the script, I think, didn't allow me to feel his love for Bruce as deeply as Michael Caine's Alfred in the Dark Knight movies. I really felt like Michael Caine just loved, I was going to say this boy, but, in his mind, Bruce Wayne is a boy to him, is like his boy. I mean, he really takes on the role of kind of a loving father figure in the Dark Knight movies, and I didn't feel that as much. Michael Gough was still, you would think of him as like a relative, like an uncle that really cares about Bruce Wayne, but he wasn't as much of a father figure in this movie as Michael Caine's Alfred. Let's see here. Let's talk about the stunts and the action and the visuals and stuff. What did you think of the action scenes?
Oh, yeah. I think they did a lot better with... Why don't
you come this way in case you're out of the camera?
I think they did really good with the acrobatics.
Really?
Yeah.
Like of the bad guys and stuff?
Well, yeah, but Batman's pretty cool, too. He's kind of, just swinging around, and then,
That's all right. It's just my phone. It's uncut. We're going to keep going.
And then, I also like how, how there's like in the final fight, there's this guy that just like flips over and over again, like repeatedly before the fight between Batman and him actually starts.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, this one thug.
Yeah, so you like that, kind of those acrobatic flipping around and stuff?
Yeah, I think they did pretty well on that.
That's a little bit surprising to hear you say that. I think that the bad guys definitely had like cool acrobatics and stuff, but compared to like modern action movies, like the Marvel movies or like the Batman movies, the Dark Knight trilogy, which we'll show to you at some point in the future, there's like the fight choreography is really pretty minimal. I mean, The Matrix really changed fight choreography and the expectations of fight choreography in movies, and that released 10 years after this one. So this was still in a time where you could mostly just have guys doing some basic punches and kicks and some quick cuts to make it, feel fast-paced and stuff, and call it a day, and now and then have a stunt guy come in who could do lots of flips and stuff, but it really does not, as far as Batman's fight choreography himself, I don't think it holds up, nearly to, what we would come to expect today. What did you think of the Batmobile and the Batwing, his jet?
I think they kind of looked old style.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, I think that the Batwing in particular, when in the crash sequence, oh man. I don't know if you could tell, but like it's a model. It's all models, And back then, I guess it wasn't as obvious to me, but looking at it now, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's like a toy plane crashing in the middle of a very cool-looking model, And so, yeah, they just didn't have digital effects, to use to that extent back then, and so they went that route. So definitely, looks dated, but it didn't take me out of the experience too bad, you know? I think that the visual design of the movie still helps it hold up in the ways that even the effects and stuff, you know, date the movie. Like, you noticed the fake trees when the Batmobile was driving through the forest.
Yeah, those were, like, clear. Like, clear fake trees.
Yeah. Obviously fake, obviously fake. And I noticed that too, but what I notice, also is like the design of the trees and the look and the feel and the vibe. And so I think that even noticing when there's some fake things like that, sometimes if it's done for stylistic reasons, to have more stylistic control over the visuals, I can appreciate what they're doing visually, stylistically, So what did you think of the score, of the music?
The music was pretty good.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's still kind of old style. It doesn't really... Sometimes I kind of notice that it's not really as loud as the people talking, or maybe the music is louder, or... I mean, the two volumes don't really match all the time.
Between dialogue and music?
Yeah, it's been a while. I can't... my memory's still kind of foggy, but that's what I can remember.
Okay. When it felt old style to you, I'm curious, was that when you heard the orchestra type music playing, or more when it was like the pop music, like where there's a singer, going along with it? Like remember when the Joker came into the museum and they had that pop music playing with the guy singing in the background? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that was kind of old style.
Okay.
Too.
Did you also feel like the orchestra music stuff, that felt old style too?
Not as much as the pop music.
Not as much as the pop music. Okay. All right.
But they're both still kind of old style, but the pop music is a little more.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially since it came off of radio, right?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah,
yep.
So.
And there was a lot of Prince music, or the artist formerly known as Prince, or whatever he was at the time. No, I used Prince still at the time. Yeah, but I have no objectivity in this realm. I've seen this movie way too many times, so I just accept the Prince music. It's just kind of part of what it is for me. And then the orchestra music I accept as too. That theme is just embedded in my brain as something that I enjoy. However, I didn't like it when it returned in the Justice League movie, when they used that instead of like the Hans Zimmer stuff. I'm like, no, I didn't want them to return to that. And I think it's because in a new movie context, what Elfman did back then was that old style of like superhero march music. And you just don't hear superhero marches anymore, as themes in superhero movies. They go with something that's more subtle, or that's just a little bit more sweeping and orchestral or something. And so I can definitely see it being kind of dated. And Danny Elfman had a different style back then that was much more boom, tick, boom, tick, boom, tick. It just had a more kind of like simplistically rhythmic kind of style to it. Okay, so let's talk about themes just briefly. There's not much. I don't think this movie is going to really grab people with themes to make them think about. Revenge is obviously a theme. There's a moment between Vicky Vale and Bruce Wayne where he says, establishing why he needs to keep doing what he's doing, he says it's not a perfect world. And she says it doesn't have to be a perfect world. And so I think it maybe calls to that feeling that we all have in us of just the bleakness and the corruption in this world, and that's messed up and something needs to be done about it. But then there's also the attitude of, okay, it doesn't have to be perfect. And yeah, but do we really want to settle for that? Is that just something we tell ourselves because we don't, as humans, have a solution to fix all of it? So I think there's maybe some room to have a little bit of thought and conversation come out of this movie, but I think you really have to be looking for it. I mean, those themes would have been a bit striking for its time, maybe, again, if you're looking for them, but DC superhero movies like the Dark Knight trilogy and Man of Steel and Batman vs. Superman go much deeper thematically and emotionally with that kind of thing. All right, so we're not going to hear my time-traveling thoughts this time because I have no objectivity when it comes to this movie. Of course, I'm glad that I saw it. Of course, I would tell my 12-year-old self to see it. But let's go back in time and see what you would say to yourself.
Okay. I'm in my brother's room. And, 1 second. Hey, I think you should watch it. It's kind of amazing, but it's kind of creepy too, and it's kind of old style, but I think you're gonna enjoy it.
Nice. Kind of old style, but you're gonna enjoy it. It's kind of creepy too. So it was a little bit creepy to you now and then.
Yep.
Okay.
Rating, right?
Yeah, on that note, we should talk about the rating.
It is PG-13 for violence, gore, frightening, and intense scenes, and some language.
And that was a description that actually I wrote. The description following the PG-13 rating wasn't written out on IMDb, so they might phrase it differently. And of course, IMDb.com is a great resource if you want to check out the blow-by-blow descriptions of all the content concerns that you might have before you consider showing it to your kids, since every family's different, and so yeah, IMDb.com, great way to educate yourself. All right, those are our thoughts. We'd love to get yours in the comments below. You can get info about how to support what we're doing at patreon.com/spiritbladeproductions. Then I hope you'll join us soon over at christiangeekcentral.com as we continue to geek out
and seek the truth. And remember, you are his #1 patron. So you better do your stuff.
You are my #1 a Patreon supporter? Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. We've got a ton going on here at Spirit Blade Productions and Christian Geek Central, including our in-depth Bible study for geeks, movie, game, and other entertainment reviews or commentary, live streams, Christian geek news, original audio dramas, and tons more. And on top of all that, you can become a Spirit Blade insider with an influential voice and get access to exclusive content and rewards. It's your involvement as a patron that will keep all of this going and growing, so I want to thank you for your consideration in that. For more information, please check out our Patreon page through the link below at patreon.com/spiritbladeproductions. Thanks for listening.